What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Let's Get Chatting podcast. I always mess that up, Do you know why? It's because we've changed the name on the podcast, so it's like I sometimes revert back to the old one, and it's like and then, hi everybody. Today we've got a great guest with us. It's Lisa, someone who story is going to be deep. We're going to get into some good shit, good mental shit, and try and just, lately I've been focusing a lot on mental health, and that's something I really want to focus on, not just because it's been Mental Health Month. It's been a long time that we've been focusing on a lot of mental health, and the reason being is it's something that is close to home for me, family-wise, friends-wise, and so on. So yeah, we're keeping on the trend, people. We're keeping on the trend. As I go into this, I always start. Lisa's going to be a bit more comfortable than some others because you run a podcast, you've been on many podcasts, so it's not the first rodeo. But I do always like to start just by saying, how's your day been? Get into the flow of conversation. So what have you been up to? How have you been?
First of all, hi, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm great. I've been up to, God, like everything, feels like everything all at once. I had this conversation last night with my mom. I was kind of decompressing at the end of the day. And it was one of those days when you're just like in 1,000 different directions and everything is positive and you're so energized. And not that I'm saying this from any previous experience, but if I were to be on coke, I would imagine that the way that I spoke to my mother last night, just in that energized state, that is what I would be like, because I was just so hyper wound with excitement over the stuff I have cooking right now. And
I feel you.
Yeah. So the answer to your question is things are good. Things are busy, making lots of impact, which is what I wake up and try to do every day.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Make an impact is, I'm trying my best. I want to make an impact too. Somebody let me make an impact, people.
You're doing it right now.
Exactly.
You really are.
Exactly. So you're an author, a columnist, a mental health advocate, all of these sorts of things, which we're going to get into. But the idea here is to let you tell your story. And that's sort of the way I'd like to do it is, so if you just, wherever you want to start, just go from it. Tell us who Lisa is. Tell us how Lisa got to where she is today.
No, I appreciate that. First of all, thanks for having me. I love to get to the UK anytime. So it looks like this is my shot this week, because I'm guessing that's where you are. I know that's where you are.
Yeah, I mean, for all my sins, personally, this country is just a bit of a shit show at the minute. So
well, it cannot be any better than where I am right now. I'm in the US, so I don't think anybody has any envy. Yeah,
I'm envious. I'm moving over. Everybody needs to stop being so negative.
Let's just house swap, Josh. We'll just house swap.
Honestly,
I would do this second.
I mean, I wouldn't go because you're where?
No, we're in just north of Boston.
Boston. Okay, cool. So I'm going to Tennessee. In the country.
You're in Tennessee? Oh, that's where you're going. Okay, cool.
In the countryside, away from people.
That's good. That's good.
I call myself an extroverted introvert.
Okay, yeah. I know a lot of people who I think to some degree I call myself the same thing. So I totally I can totally relate with that. So who am I? I guess it's like a big, broad, kind of crazy question, because there are a lot of ways I could answer that question. So you touched on a few of the bits of who I am. So I'm a mom. I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 32 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It's been a minute. We've been together almost 40 years. Actually, tomorrow, I'm just looking at my timestamp on my screen. Tomorrow is our 39th anniversary from our first date.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No, it doesn't. And I feel pretty grateful for that. Wildly grateful for that. So I'm a mom and a wife first and foremost. And, I'm also, I think what really identifies me more than anything right now is I'm a survivor. And I think a lot of us can say that, whether you have my lived experience or not. But the context that I mean that in is that I'm a survivor of a lot of very nuanced kind of loss. So you said it before, I'm a mental health advocate. I do an awful lot of work trying to change the narrative around mental illness, and in particular suicide. I'm a 3-time survivor of suicide loss. So that has really reshaped the way I show up in the world, all the work that I do.
suicide loss for the listeners? Because some people might not know what that
Yeah.
means.
No, I appreciate you asking that. So in my case, you can be either a survivor of, when you say a survivor of suicide, it could be a survivor of an attempt, or it could be a survivor of a loss. And I am a 3-time survivor of suicide loss. So I have lost 3 people who are close to me over the course of my life to suicide. The first one started, and maybe that's the best jumping in point. So I lost a cousin of mine when I was 9 years old. It was the first experience I'd ever had with death. It just happened to be a suicide. So it was just like like a double hit at the same time. He lived, half mile up the street from us. It was just a chaotic and crazy situation. My parents at that time did find a way. This was in the 1970s. They did find a way to communicate with me that it's, his brain was sick and he chose to leave. And I understood what it was to a degree.
Yep.
The very next year, my father died of what I was told was a heart attack. He was the most alive, joyful, present, loving man. You would never, ever think that anything would ever have been wrong with my father. So I had that narrative of his death for 35 years.
Okay.
Flash forward to just a handful of years ago, only 4 years ago, we lost one of our closest childhood friends. We've been close since we were 5, like in each other's weddings, lived together after college, friends for over 50 years. And he very unexpectedly, suddenly took his life. So in the midst of all that, about a decade ago, I learned very accidentally that my father had died by suicide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a case of having to grieve the same person twice, which is, I would think, and what I know just from being in this space for so long and hearing so many stories from so many people, it's not something you hear very often.
No.
And in my case, that's my lived experience. So I lost my father to what I thought was a heart attack and grieved him like that for 35 years and grew up without him and believing that that was how he passed away. And then when I was a mother of 2, at that time, teenage daughters, all of a sudden I found out that my dad had actually taken his life. And that just, absolutely blew my entire world up. It definitely,
I can imagine.
Yeah, it shut me down in so many ways. So I, historically, have always been a writer. I've always created a lot of different kinds of content. More specifically, you said in the intro that I'm a columnist. I've been a columnist for probably close to 15 years here in the US.
Okay.
And I have a couple of different columns that have been kind of all over the planet in different ways, which is beautiful. And I wrote parenting books for about a decade and then just shut everything down in just an attempt to kind of get my bearings. I was just completely thrown off in every aspect of my life and really just kind of needed to figure out what just happened and try to process it all and deal with it all. And
so with regards to like what you thought happened to your dad and the reality of what happened, how was it that you were given the wrong information? Was it like a nefarious thing? How?
No, it wasn't intentional. It was an intentional, very, I say calculated, but that makes it sound very
nefarious.
Very nefarious, right? Negative. No. So what had happened was my father was my best friend in the world. I was his little sidekick. We did absolutely everything together. I'm an only child. And so we had just had this beautiful bond and relationship. And then he was gone. And my mother, who was as taken by surprise as anybody else was the person to find him along with someone else and along with just a friend of the family. And in that moment, the first thing that went through her mind, I was at day camp for the day. So I had left that morning and my father had stayed home for the day, which he had never been a stay at home kind of a guy. He was up and out into the city for work every day, but he had been dealing with some issues, some health issues, and was taking the day to kind of just practice a little self-care and was going to meet my mother for lunch. And he never called and he wasn't answering the phone. My mother went home and my mother discovered him as I was getting ready to board the bus to head home that afternoon from camp. And so in that moment, she, of course, found a note. So it was very obvious that he had taken his life. There was no question that he had taken his life. There was a note. She read the note. As quickly as she read it, she shredded it She flushed it down the toilet in the bathroom, never spoke another word about it to anyone. When I came home, her first thought was, I'm now about to change my child's life forever.
Sure.
Things will never be the same. Our family unit has now been forever altered. I cannot, in the 1970s, when no one was prepared for any kind of mental health issue, she said, how could I possibly now layer a suicide on top of all that? And she said, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So she told me that my father was a smoker. He was super healthy and active, but he was also a very big smoker.
Sounds like me. I've moved to, everyone's got a vice, right?
Right. But back in the day, people didn't know that it was so damaging. So
yeah,
he smoked along with playing tennis and racing cars and climbing mountains. And so there was heart disease that ran on my father's side of the family. And so in that kind of split second moment, my mother made the decision to tell me that it was a heart attack, which was something that my 10-year-old brain could process and that would not create any blame, that would not be something I would consider questioning. There would be no reason to question that. And of all the things that she could have said to me, not that there's ever anything that you could do to make something like that, a moment like that, easier, but it certainly was a different set of circumstances than finding out that your father, when you're 10 years old, finding out that your father took his own life and left.
Yeah.
So she told me that story, and everyone else, there were only a couple of people who even knew that a note had existed. And it was really my grandmother and some aunts who never said another word to my mother. My mother never spoke a word to them. No one ever contradicted the story. And everyone in every aspect of my life knew that my father had died of a heart attack. And that's the way it was for 35 years until I found out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so with regards to like the heart attack would be, I suppose it was so different back then, but like now I suppose it would be something that would, because kids are little shits as well.
Yeah.
So, if not mates, but other people at school, if they found out that, your dad died via suicide, they would you'd probably get a bit like, as horrible as it is, you'd get grief about it,
No, definitely.
And there's other, like, so there's so many things that it may have like saved you from without even like knowing. And when you found out, how did that make you feel towards like your mum? Was it something that like, were you quite, because like you sound like you've handled it really well, don't get me wrong, but in the moment, I would have gone batshit. I'm not going to lie.
Josh, it's interesting. So when I found out, and I think everything really relates back to the luck of timing.
Okay.
I remember, I can't speak to how I may have been finding out when I was 10. I really do think that it would have or could have ended me when I was 10. Whatever.
It would have changed your life.
Oh, without a doubt. But keep in mind, I found out 35 years later. I was the same age. I was 45 when I found out. That's how old my father was when he passed away. So I had children who were older than I was. By the time I found out. So I was a parent. I had that perspective of being a grown adult. Not to mention the fact that now we're living in a world where even 10 years ago, talking about mental illness, talking about suicide had drastically changed. Just the fact that it was more accepted in our culture. It was, people are being more vulnerable, and it was not as stigmatized, not nearly as stigmatized as it was in the decades prior to that. So I had the advantage of that timing on my side. And I think that that's really what enabled me to find this truth out. And of course, like, the one thing has nothing to do with the other. The shock and the impossibility that was the actual situation, that still very much existed, but never once. And I say this so truthfully, never once, not for a single moment from the minute I found out, did I harbor any kind of animosity or anger or resentment toward my mother. The only feelings that I had then, and the only feelings I have had since and that I have now, are feelings of the most indescribable kind of gratitude that I can't articulate it, Josh. There's no way for me to articulate it, because the depth of it is so difficult for me to even understand. Like, my mother saved me in doing what she did. That's all I can say. And while I wish every day that I could have been there to have gone through that with her, because I know that she was dealing with her own grief. That was the outward grief, that the optics that everyone could see. She was now a widow. She was raising a child alone. All of those things, but silently, alone, not with a therapist, not even with a family member or a friend. No one was there for her to offload everything that she was dealing with in terms of the suicide piece of my father's death, because that whole, it was a secret. So I wish that I had been there and had known at that time, so that I could have gone through it with her. I could have supported her, but I wouldn't have had the capacity to do that as a 10-year-old kid the way I do now. So what I'm most grateful for now, I'm grateful that I know. You know, I mean,
of course.
I mean, it's,
and
it
how
sucks.
did you find out? How was it you found out? If you don't mind me asking.
No, I don't mind you asking at all. And it's not a very dramatic story. It was a comment. I bumped into a family member. My husband and I were out to lunch in our hometown, and we happened to be sitting outdoors at a cafe. A cousin of mine walked by. She doesn't live in the area full time. So she walked by, plopped down. How is everything? How is everyone? How are your kids? Her kids are a little older than mine. So we're talking for a few minutes, and out of absolutely nowhere, we hadn't seen each other for a while, she asks me if our daughters had had any of the same mental illness that my father had. And I look, you know, those moments where you're just caught so off guard. You don't even know what your face looks like. You don't even know how to respond. I had no idea what she was talking about. I never knew that my father was depressed, or that I certainly didn't know about his suicide. And my husband is like side-eyeing me across the table, like, what the hell is she talking about? And I didn't really give her an answer. I think the most I said was, no, the girls are fine, because at that time they were. Since then, as they got into their teenage years and young adult years, they've each had issues with anxiety. My oldest has had issues with depression. They've both seen therapists. They've both done incredible, beautiful amounts of work on themselves, and are very much the best versions of themselves that I've ever known as their mom. But at that time, they were, you know, teenage girls, and nothing more than being teenage, you know, bitchy teenage girls was happening in my life. So I didn't know how to respond. And so I think I probably just said, no, the girls are fine. And then as soon as she asked the question, she more or less ended the conversation, got up and took off. And that was that. And so I was just sitting there with my husband. We were both kind of looking at each other like, what the hell just happened? What was that all about?
Yeah.
And my mom and I are so unbelievably close. We have such a unique and beautiful bond. She is my best friend in the world. I'm so lucky that at 86 years old, she is a powerhouse of a human. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. She just arrived home from Florida for the season. So I have her all to myself for the summer. And it wasn't like I went running to her and said, God, I had this weird conversation today. It wasn't like that. And I didn't all of a sudden start thinking things like, wait, what don't I know? I didn't think that. my brain certainly didn't go to suicide. Nothing like that. Yeah. It just was kind of a moment of pause. Like, that was weird. And then I just kind of filed it away. But the next time I was with my mother, which was like the next day, probably, we were eating lunch. And this is when everything came out. We were eating lunch, just the two of us. And we were talking. And you know, the way that you do with your parents, you reminisce. People from your past, you reminisce. We always did that. And the subject of my father came up, and very unexpectedly, you know how sometimes when you even don't realize that you're thinking about a thing until the thing comes out of your mouth?
Every time I talk, I don't think before I speak. I'm not going to word vomit constantly. So I feel,
I really appreciate that. So we're sitting there, we're talking about my dad in a totally different context, I think. And then before I even knew the words were coming out of my mouth, I asked if my dad had been depressed, which is a question I had never asked her in my entire life. And it was very strange. She didn't really even hesitate. She didn't really even seem affected by the conversation, because she answered me straight away and said he was. And before I could even dig deeper, before I could even collect my thoughts, the question was out of my mouth. I didn't know I was going to ask it. I heard myself asking it. It will probably remain the single most bizarre moment of my life, how that whole conversation began so unexpectedly. And I just looked her right in the face and I said, Mom, did Dad take his life? And she didn't even blink, and she said yes. And it changed everything. We went out to the car. Both of us were shook. I mean, we were both shook. She had always she vowed two things. She vowed never to tell me, because she figured, why would I need to know at this point? He's gone. It certainly won't do any good for me to know this.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, which is ironic because they're contradictory things, she said, if she ever asks me, I'll never lie to her. But then why would I ask?
Yeah, no, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So here,
that makes total sense.
Both things had happened. She kept the secret, but then I asked the question and she told me the answer truthfully. And so now we're walking to my car, both of us just in a state of complete shock in some random parking lot, sitting in my car, and she's hysterical and I'm hysterical. And I think it was at least somewhere between 1 and 2 hours of us sitting in my car that way, just trying to breathe and trying to just even find words to continue this conversation, which, by the way, we've been in for 11 years now, the same conversation. And it has been both beautiful and joyful and healing. It's brought us to a place, my mother and I are exceptionally close, and it's brought us to a place of closeness and a bond that I didn't even know could exist.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. And, after that, it was, a bit of a blur. After that, it was going home and needing to let her have a minute. She was staying with us. And so I brought her inside and brought her into her room so she could just kind of have a minute. And I grabbed my husband and I said, I need to take a drive with you. And he immediately saw the look on my face and was like, what is going on? And we weren't even,
husbands.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, Dave and I have been together almost 40 years. So he knows more than he knows more than I know about myself,
100%.
And I remember him saying, what is going on? And I told him what I had just learned. And that moment, of him wanting to protect me was, are you sure? Like, how do you know for sure? He wasn't, he was just clarifying. And I said, well, my dad left a note. And I think in that second, he was hopeful that, okay, could this be a mistake? Could this be somehow untrue? And I remember him saying, oh, shit, when I said he left a note. And then, from there, it was 3 years of, at least a good solid 3 years of me just crying myself to sleep at night and being mom and doing the day-to-day things kind of on autopilot in the outward world. And eventually telling the girls, feeling like they needed to know what that genetic cocktail was that they had inside them. And once I let them know, and my family and like the circle got wider and wider, then I found I couldn't stop talking about it. Then all of a sudden, the reaction I was getting from people about my vulnerability and my transparency about the story, that's what blew me away. That's what probably is the single biggest change agent in what took me from who I was and what I was doing in the world before to who I am and what I'm doing now, and all the advocacy work and podcasts about suicide loss, and another book that's coming out about that story, and working on crisis lifelines here in the US and running grief groups. And so everything has changed, and I have never felt more in line with my purpose in the world than I do right now.
Yeah, nice.
It's a shitty way to find your purpose in life.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a path, I guess.
But I'm grateful that I found it.
Yeah, 100%. Some people have different paths. Like, it's the secondary sort of grief must have been so, because it's not, people don't know. I didn't know how to grieve. I lost my nan at the end of last year.
I'm so sorry.
And I lived with her. She was like the closest person in my life.
I lived with mine for 12 years and she was the closest person in mine. So I feel you, and I'm so sorry. And
grief is something that I think I've probably never dealt with. Like, I've dealt with, like, I've lost like my godfather, which was horrible. That was a crazy motorbike accident. He was young. That was sort of one of those things where I was in so much shock. I don't think I was in a position to understand how to grieve. So I just sort of at that point I was like, yeah, I'm over it. Like, it's how I dealt with it. My nan was older, but it was a whole COVID mishap thing. It was one of these things. I can't get too much into that because I get angry.
I don't blame you.
But that to me is something that to this day I don't think I've grieved or dealt with. She only got crazily enough, she only got a plot like 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, so I visited it the first time like this weekend, and it was like, yeah, I had a cry. I took my son there. It was wholesome, kind of, because he put the flowers down, but at the same time, it was like, whoa, this is really like sad.
Yeah.
It was weird. So yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been like for you, a second sort of grief, not common grief. It's like we know people die,
Right.
like we know that. My nan was old. I knew she was gonna die, so it was expected. So, but having that happen and then come to something so unexpected, that's fucking
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah. Honestly, Josh, that is the best way anyone has ever described it. It was fucking nuts. And it continues to be, because and we're never over our grief. We don't stop grieving because we don't stop loving our people, and we grieve because we love. So it's just a cycle that continues. It changes and ebbs and flows in a million different ways, but it changes. And I can totally relate with what you said about not being able to grieve or not having grieved for your nan, because what I only just learned, so I'll be 57 next month.
Mm-hmm.
My dad has been gone. It will be 47 years this year, this August. And I learned in therapy, I started going back to therapy about 3 years ago after like a 30-year break from therapy. And only this past year, because of a question that my therapist asked me, did I realize that I had never grieved the first death of my father when I was a little girl. Did I cry? Of course. Did we have I'm Jewish, and in our religion, we have a practice called sitting Shiva, which is the condolence period of time where people come and they pay their condolence calls. And I remember all of those things, but I also remember, and my mother was as present and supportive as she could have been for me at that time. But the fact was that I didn't have anyone coming up to me. No teachers were prepared to deal with a student coming back to school in September who didn't have a dad. I was the only child in my entire fourth grade, not just my class, the entire fourth grade who didn't have a dad. So right from the jump, I was very much the odd person out. No one ever asked me, how are you? How are you doing? What do you need? Are you good? Do you want to talk about your dad? It didn't exist. So I never really grieved it until really just the last handful of years.
I think it's with like when people, I always find it like I'm the worst for that. I'm so bad for like asking people hard questions in person. Like I said, I'm an extroverted introvert, because if I see a friend on the street, I will barely talk to them. I will walk away shaking. Online, I will talk for hours and hours. It's crazy. But I think asking, especially like young, I suppose asking somebody about like a lost family member is super hard. So, I mean, I wouldn't know how to broach that. I mean, even now, it's like if for an example, touch wood, nothing happens, but let's say something happened to my fiance, or, she lost a family member, I don't think I have the mental capacity even to be like, I would ask, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Go through all of that. But I don't think I'd have the mental capacity and be like, do you want to talk about said person? Because it's an awkward, it shouldn't be, but no one is taught how to talk about those things.
Yeah.
We learn so much crap in the school, like Pythagoras theorem or whatever. Can you teach me some social skills, please?
I know. It's all we don't learn. We don't learn that emotional CPR, that emotional mental first aid, which is what a lot of organizations now are really starting to do. They're starting to educate people on how to have not only the hard conversations about things like grief, like we're talking about, but also how do you have a conversation when someone you know or care about isn't okay, or is on the edge, or maybe they've disclosed to you, I don't want to be here anymore. How do you have that conversation? That's fucking terrifying. That is such a scary position to be in. And a lot of people just don't have the language. They don't have the tools. They don't have the understanding. They don't have the confidence. This whole conversation that you and I are having is exactly why I founded the platform that I developed within the last year called the Help Hub. And it's a place that gives everybody in every kind of community the resources they need to not only manage their mental health and wellness, but to have those hard conversations because of exactly what you said. People don't know what to say or what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite open in myself. I've always said, and I've said it on this podcast many a times, 8 months ago, if you'd have asked me about mental health, I would have been the worst person to talk to. Like, and that's the God's honest truth right now. Like, I was always like, I'll hold my hands up and I apologize to my partner many times about this. But like, if she was like feeling down or whatnot, I'd be like, go for a run. You'll be all right. That was me. That was
I get
me.
it. Yeah.
And these conversations and podcasts and YouTube and, I've never spoken to a professional. I am first time Friday, not therapy. I'm going to speak to some doctors about some stuff, but like podcasts, YouTube, people like yourself coming out and talking about these things will help so many people. And I think men especially, because I don't like the fact men's mental health is focused on a bit more than women's. I'm going to be honest with that. I don't like that, but I can understand why. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think I understand why you're saying that. It's ironic that you're saying that because we're in the month of June at the moment, and it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I do understand why you say that. And I also have an issue with the fact that while it's wonderful that we have these months that amplify certain things like Suicide Awareness Month or Mental Health Awareness Month or Men's Mental Health Awareness, we have all these awareness days and weeks and months. We should be thinking about, talking about, addressing all these things 365, all the 100%. Months, and so that's my issue within the issue, but I totally understand what you're saying.
No, I get that. We're running out of months. There's too many things happening. Like, people are like, there's so many months. It's like, oh, this is Burger Week. And I'm like, Burger Week? What is Burger Week? It's just something Facebook has made up to sell Weatherspoons or whatever they want to sell. It's crazy. There's too many months. And, men's mental health, like, to me, like, I've lost 2 friends through suicide, both
so
males.
Sorry.
You would never have expected it. Which is always like the craziest part is the masking, right? And I think maybe there's masking, but there's also a lack of masking. I think there's a lack of the conversation, like you just said. People can sit there and say, and again, I'm not saying people are to blame, but we can sit there like I just did. I just sat there and said, my friend was the most happy guy I ever met. He was the nicest and upbeat person, hilarious guy. But did I ever ask?
Well, yeah, I do know. And it's so interesting that we're having this part of the conversation now, because when you and I were chatting before you hit record, I mentioned that I have my own podcast. It's called The Survivors Podcast. And it's 2 of us, 2 different perspectives on suicide. So I'm the suicide loss survivor who has experienced suicide loss several times. And my co-host is a survivor of a suicide attempt. And so we talk a ton about her experience as the person who was the extrovert, who was the person who was like, I'm living my best life. Everything is great, showing up for everyone, never saying no to anything. Nobody had any reason to suspect anything was wrong. So no one ever asked the question. And and she talks a ton in various episodes about just how much more we need to be focused on our extroverted friends, the ones who aren't showing any signs, because you can't fix what you don't know is broken.
Sure. No, I vouch for that. Like, I'm actually, so a bit of background about me is like, I'm super anxious as a person. It's something I'm speaking to somebody about on Friday.
Good for you.
I'm pretty sure I suffer with like mad ADHD as well, which is crazy. Like, I don't stop doing anything. I live off momentum, which is fine. I'm happy with that because, quite frankly, I get a lot done. But I also spend a lot of money because I tunnel vision on things. And my latest phase is Pokemon cards. £400 on Pokemon cards. I'm just like that. And for what reason? I don't know. I just get attached, you know? So, but yeah, I've got pretty bad anxiety. Like, if I'm on the phone, I can't speak to like very well on the phone. I'm pretty bad at that. My boss at work, I don't know if he listens. If you do, Mark, I'm sorry. But like, he's so nice to me. He's the nicest guy. We speak all the time. So much has happened. And it's like, because he's an authority figure, every time I talk to him, I'm shaking or I'm nervous. I see a friend in the street from many years ago and I walk off. I'm so scared. It's weird.
It's not weird,
but to me, it's like, it's just a figure of speech, which I shouldn't say. So yeah, but that's my problem. I need to fix. But the reason I mention that is because if you spoke to anybody who knew me, I'm the joker. I'm the one who does the crazy stuff. I'm the loudest person in the room. I am the guy, like, when I was a bit younger and I'd go out drinking, I would be the guy on top of the table. I would be the guy doing all of this stuff, you know? And that's like such trademark masking. It's unreal. And I actually only found out about masking like three weeks ago on an episode I was recording. And since then, I'm looking at myself and learning, and I'm like,
yeah,
shit.
Right. You talk about the value in these conversations. You just gave the best example of the power of these kinds of conversations.
Yeah. And it's like, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, and I think a good thing, like anybody like me, if you're worried about, not worried, but if you have a thought and you're like, you know, for me, the reason I'm getting checked out or talking to somebody is slightly for me, but it's mainly for my son, because these things can go downhill, right? And I'm not too worried about myself, but again, worried about what impact. So that the more you learn about yourself, you can help your children, and that's something that anybody listening, that's definitely worth doing. It's the only reason I'm doing it, really, if I'm being totally honest.
No, I relate with so much. I feel like we're siblings from somehow, but that's why I do everything that I do. That's why I made that decision so many years ago to finally tell my daughters about my dad, because they needed to know, look, this is in your DNA, and you may see it someday, you may not see it, but if you do, you need to be able to know that you can talk about it. You need to be able to address it. You need to be able to reach out, and you're doing the same exact thing with yours, you know, for all the right reasons.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously you do like some like storytelling regarding like you've written like books and stuff, right?
I have.
And so with regards to like your columns and your books and all these sorts of things, like how do you find that helps with like anything sort of like, I don't know, shifting sort of the way people feel about mental health, anything like that? Is that sort of your aim? Is that what you want to do?
Well, I think it's there are really two reasons for me that I share. It's to normalize just having conversations like this, to normalize the fact that we're all dealing with some kind of shit, whatever it may be, and that we have to change that narrative. And that's one piece of it. And the other piece is it's therapeutic for me. I'm one of those people, and there are so many out there. The majority are like me, who've lost someone. You want to talk about your person. When my dad's name gets mentioned, that is such a gift to me. I'll give you a perfect example. There aren't many people now, obviously my family members. My husband never met my father. Obviously my children never met my father. Most of the friends that I have in my life at this point, short of the friends who I've had since I was a little girl, anyone pre-age of 10 has never met my father. So that pool of people is growing smaller and smaller in my life. And we just celebrated Father's Day, by the way. Happy belated Father's Day to you. We just celebrated Father's Day. And, of course, I made a post acknowledging my dad, my stepdad, my father-in-law, my husband. And one of my old friends who used to go mountaineering, my father was a huge mountaineer, and my father got this friend's father into climbing. And of course, he got his sons into climbing. And now this friend got his children into climbing. And I, of course, got mine into it as well. And it all started with my father. And so I posted this post for Father's Day, and this friend who lives in Washington reached out. And it was, if I even try to paraphrase it, I'll start to cry, which I rarely do on podcasts, but I can feel it coming. He wrote the most beautiful post. He said, he missed my father. And he said, my father gave his father, him, his brother, and his children the greatest gift of their life by exposing them to the joy of being in nature and mountaineering, and what a gift. And now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Appalachian Mountain Club here in the United States. We have the Appalachian Trail and the Appalachian Mountains.
I know the
Okay.
Appalachian Mountains, but I don't. That's
Okay, that's fine.
guess.
Well, it's a very big mountain range that runs from, this north to south. And here in my area on the eastern coast of the United States, we have the White Mountains in New Hampshire, in that area. And that was a place I spent so much of my childhood doing something called high hutting, which is there's a hut system where you can climb and stay overnight. And these huts are run by, it's amazing.
Oh, wow.
They're run by the
sick.
Appalachian Mountain Club. It's called the AMC Club. And in the post, in his comment on my Facebook page, my friend said, you and your dad would be happy to know that his daughter just took a job working as a guide for the AMC here in the Boston area, in the White Mountains, where we used to climb as kids. And he said that would never have happened. She would never have found the passion of her life were it not for your father. That's, having someone say something like that out in the world, kind of in the ether, that's a gift to me. That is the greatest
100%.
gift, to just hear his name mentioned or know someone who really knew him for who he was and the joy that he brought to the world. So yeah, it's a weird thing to live with on a million different levels.
I mean, loss is in any sense is so crazy, because people I don't think until you notice it, you don't know the effect someone can have on a life. It's for me, even my nan, I was a slob. As a child, I was a slob. I was so bad. When I lived there, she would berate me every day. You lazy little shit. That's what because I didn't fold my clothes. I didn't tidy up after myself. My nan, bless her heart, she had OCD real bad. She would be up till 4 a.m. She would be on top of the fridge freezer cleaning it. She was in the best way possible nuts.
Sounds like me.
But now I'm doing all of that. I'm if there's one bowl in that sink, that's get me cleaning, I'm I'm looking at things, I'm like, oh, she would kill me.
But I bet that's really endearing to you, though, that you have that now.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But I also believe in ghosts, and some weird stuff happens in my house. So I'm like, is she telling me off?
She might be. She sounds like a tough nut. Maybe she was.
She was tough. But in all seriousness, no, I think you do realize, and it's such a shame you realize after somebody's gone, all of the effects, because I think we take it for granted as people. We take people for granted, each other for granted, and I think that's something I'm trying to learn. Is every moment I get with my son, I'm I don't know what can happen tomorrow, and that's something that, I mean, really, since losing my nan, I've really, really took on board and been shit, tomorrow's not promised to anybody.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
And again, anybody listening, that's something to live by. Obviously, it doesn't mean go spend all your money. Don't be stupid.
And it also means don't live in fear either. It just means be present and say the I love yous and do the things and spend the time and just try to be as present as you can in your life. Yeah,
and it's crazy for me because if me and my fiance, everybody bickers and argues, right? So if we argue, I'm within an hour, I'm so over it. I go back to normal. We could have the worst argument ever in an hour's time. I'm hey, you right, babe? How you doing? You good? She's are you serious? And I'm yeah. Because I'm what is the point?
Yeah, I love that you do that. It's funny. My grandmother, who lived with us, always had this rule. It was just a rule. You never go to bed angry. She didn't with my grandfather. She didn't with my mother and my aunts and uncles. My mother and father were like that. And my husband Dave and I are like that. And after 32 years of being married, we still will not, and I don't think have ever gone to, we might start off, it might be lying awake in the dark for a half an hour, one of us being more stubborn than the other. And eventually someone will reach out and grab someone's hand, or someone will snuggle and somehow there, that signal is sent that okay, we're okay.
100%. It's so funny because it's exactly the same here. Me and my fiance, we're both very stubborn.
Yeah,
we're so stubborn though. So but I can't sleep.
I can't either.
If I'm angry, I can't sleep anyway. So it's even if it's just to get to sleep, I need to
Yeah.
sort this
Yeah.
out. You know?
I feel you. I really do.
It's always a running joke here, though. Like, you know, whoever makes the first move to fix the issue is like,
Yeah.
haha, you know, in jest, it's fun. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, guys, just freaking live life. Like, genuinely, just live life. Like, that's one thing I always take. And, you know, going back to sort of like the mental health side of things, I think because you're quite big on the advocate of like misconceptions about mental health, all this sort of thing. So what do you believe in society today is like the biggest sort of like the misconceptions or like the negativity surrounding it? Because I've got my own opinions on things.
I have a lot of those opinions. I think there's a big misconception, especially going back to now talking about kind of men and the optics around men, but it doesn't just focus on men. It's that notion that you have to be strong all the time, or you have to have your shit together all the time. You can't show anyone any weakness. You'll be less than if you can't handle your job, or you can't handle your marriage, or you can't handle your kids. Like, it's bullshit. It's such a false narrative. We're being fed this crazy societal construct that says you are not considered successful if there is any weakness. That is the biggest bunch of bullshit. And I really just wish people could see through that and understand that the strength is actually in the ability to say, hey, I'm not okay. I'm sinking. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I need help. I need a break. I need to say no. I need time for myself. I have started establishing boundaries at the age of almost 57 years old for the first time in my life, starting maybe less than 2 years ago, because I was saying yes to everybody for everything, no matter what. I was dead last, never liked to let anybody know that I couldn't handle anything. And it did such incredible damage to me that no one ever knew about. Absolutely no one ever knew about it. Maybe short of my husband, who saw the impacts that it had. And by prioritizing myself, it didn't mean I was caring any less about the people in my life or about my job or about my friends. It just meant that I factored myself into the equation. I am right now, I believe, if you can say this, I feel like I'm the best version of myself that I have known so far, because I'm putting myself into that equation, and I'm saying no when I feel like I need to say no, and I'm prioritizing, and I'm not wasting my time on bullshit. I'm not doing performative shit anymore for other people's sake, just because I want to make sure I don't piss anybody off. I was the biggest, and still to some degree am, I was always the biggest people pleaser, and that's my nature. And that is something that I really have worked hard and continue to work hard on changing. The only person I was never focused on pleasing was me, which is the dumbest irony of all. And once I started doing that, everything changed. So I think in terms of, what misconceptions out there, it's like, it is not a bad thing to say, stop, hang on, I need a break, I need help, I need to talk. Those are the things that people need to understand are the things that we should be doing above all.
Yeah, 100%. And also, I want to say that people always say with women, it's their time in a month. That fucks me off so bad. Like, don't get me wrong. Again, me and my fiance, we have a sick sense of humor to each other. We're pretty rude. People would think we're rude to each other. We're really not. We're just crazy. If she's winding me up and I'm doing it to her, and she'll be like, da da da. Like,
we do the same thing. We do the same thing in my family.
Right? People were like, I think a lot of like the focus on men's mental health is absolutely fine, but I think there needs to be a bit more focus on women's mental health. And I think a lot of people don't do that because sometimes when women are feeling that way, if it is part of their cycle, they're using that as an excuse.
It's true.
And everybody, I got to unload this shit. The whole alpha bullshit as well. Like, males have to be alpha. I tried that. I'm covered in tattoos. I went to the gym. I do all of that. And yeah, I felt good in myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm a massive advocate for working out. I believe the releasing of endorphins is amazing and so on. But if I'm strong enough to open up about 10 minutes ago, so are you. And fuck Andrew Tate.
Thank you. Can I say fuck Andrew Tate too?
We could also say fuck Andrew Tate. It's great for the algorithm and great for my mental health.
I feel so good right now. That was the best part of my day. My kids are going to love this.
Like, listen, I mean, I believe everybody is a little bit right about something. Everybody on this planet. There's certain things that people say which is just completely fucking idiotic and misogynistic and racist and all of these negatives, homophobic, the lot. People say all that shit, but I still do believe that each individual person is right in a tiny little bit. So fuck Andrew Tate, because 98% of you is an absolute douche, but there's 2% of you that's all right. So if you ever want to come on my podcast, let me know, because I'll get loads of views.
Just don't tell him he's a dick on your podcast.
I'll tell him to his friends.
Then call me up and I'll do the same thing.
But I think, again, that's something for men as well. It's like, there's so many men that sit there and they like will advocate men's mental health, but at the same time they're doing all that Andrew Tate shit, which is like, again, affecting women's mental health. So can we all just fix up, please, like, and just focus on both? It's been bothering me. Like, I love men's mental health is such a big thing, and it's something I do focus on. And it's like, if I see somebody, I say, how are you? But I don't mean, I'm not like, you're right. That's not me just saying hi. That is me asking, how are you? You know, we need to normalize that being an actual question as opposed to.
And you know what? I want to take that one step further, because I'm really glad that you just said that. We also need to ask the harder questions, because it becomes more performative. And I know I'm guilty of it. When we ask the question because we know we should, and maybe there's a slight reason or a bigger reason why we feel like we need to call someone out and ask them if they're okay. But it needs to go beyond just, hey, Josh, are you okay? Good. Okay. You're okay? Because you might be one of the extroverts who's like, no, I'm great. I'm absolutely great. Everything's so good. But inside you're dead, or you want to be. That's
what I would then follow up and be like,
exactly.
Yeah, but how are you?
Open-ended questions.
And it's knowing. Listen, it's knowing your audience as well. It's who the? Oh, sorry, please bear with. Someone's ringing me on Discord, and it was like, sorry if anybody could hear that. Yeah, I mean, it's knowing your audience as well. I do believe that, you know, because if I may turn around and be like, back off my shit sometimes. It's knowing when is the right time. Listen, if somebody's like really pissed off and in a bad mood, don't pressure them on it. Like, I really don't think that's the right thing to do. But also just checking on your mates. Like, again, it's something I'm learning to do. Like, I've got a friend, and a friend who has been on this podcast, not somebody who I was great friends with. And I wouldn't say I'm like best friends with them now, but there was nothing stopping me today just sending him a quick voice note. Hey man, how you doing? I know you're going through some shit. Like, what's going on? Hope you're good. If you ever need to chat to me. Yeah. It takes 2 seconds, guys.
And it's our responsibility. We're not here alone.
Yeah.
We're here in a world where we have families and we have coworkers and we have friends, and it is our responsibility.
Whoa. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. That's fucking crazy. Who? He's literally just replied. The guy who I was just talking about, I messaged. Like, at that moment.
No, that's like
that was fucking...
That's like a supernatural thing.
That's fucking crazy. Oh my God.
He must have known. He must have just vibed it somehow.
For sure. So let's talk about so you've got the Help Hub and you work with, is it the Trevor 100%
project? Correct. Yeah, which you are. You're nailing it. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's go with, because I've probably got a few. The Trevor project is maybe something on that maybe not 110% fully aligned with me, but I don't know. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that.
You never know until I explain. So the Trevor project is the largest LGBTQ crisis and support hotline for at-risk youth ages 13 to 24 here in the United States and in Mexico. So think of it as, I know you all have this in the UK. Every country, or most countries, have that suicide and crisis hotline. Here in the United States, it's not, you dial 988. And the Trevor Project functions in the same way. It's got a longer number. It's a true traditional 800 number, but it will connect you with a counselor. I am one of those Lifeline counselors. We also have a texting platform where people, it's cool. It's we also have something. Oh,
Congratulations. Well
yeah,
done.
thank you.
Honestly,
I mean, I certainly am not the person who founded the Trevor Project. It's been around for about 27 years. I am one of their counselors. So I was trained by them about 3.5 years ago. I've been on the Lifelines now for just about 3 years. And I just had a shift. I just came off of a shift to get onto this podcast. So that's how I spent my morning, was answering calls from people who are dealing with everything from coming out and feeling like they're going to be disowned or ostracized, to people who are suicidal, maybe just having ideation, people who I've had so many calls from people who are in an attempt at that moment. They are in an imminent risk of harming themselves in that moment. I've had people who've had breakups and been abused, and you name it. Any kind of a crisis that a human could experience is what we hear on these crisis lines. So I've been a volunteer crisis counselor now for 3 years. That's what the Trevor Project does. That's who they are. That's who they cater their help to. We never turn away a call. I mean, if you're not part of the LGBTQ community, it's not like we're going to hang up the phone on you. We'll of course take anybody's call, but that's our primary demographic, is youth in the LGBTQ community. And then the Help Hub is something very different. It deals with something similar in the sense that the Help Hub is a destination for people in any community, whether it be the LGBTQ community or the BIPOC community or the Asian community or Latinx community or parents or veterans, the elderly, anybody in any community who is trying to find resources to help support their mental health and wellness. And that could mean mindfulness resources. It could mean online mental health support. It could mean crisis intervention support. It could mean treatment options. I've created and curated a massive, massive directory in the last couple of years of online resources. Everything is free. You go to the helphub.co. Yeah, thank you. Awesome. You go there. All of my content is there. All of my podcast episodes are there. Books that I've written. I have an entirely separate but built into the Help Hub toolkit section where I've curated. We talked a little while ago about how do you ask people about their grief, or how do you ask people if they're not okay or if they're suicidal. I actually created resources with the language, with the questions, the talking points, the actual dialogue to have. If you're like, oh shit, someone's struggling and I don't know what to say, go to the Help Hub.
That would help me.
Yes,
so that's
yes,
like what I was
exactly,
saying earlier,
exactly.
Right?
They're downloadable,
Perfect.
shareable, printable PDFs in an archive. It's an online library where you just click on the subject that you're looking to get a little bit of help with. And there's an info doc that will give you the language, that will give you the background of the tips or the little extra confidence that you need to have those conversations. And all of this is in a very, very easy to use. Like, I want people to have the resources that they need and have them be a click away, which is what the Help Hub is. It's on Instagram stuff, right? It's the Help Hub is on Instagram. It's on, you can find it on LinkedIn. There is a TikTok channel. There's a YouTube channel, and all of that, all the socials funnel into the actual web platform, which is thehelphub.
Cool. I'll put all of that in the description as well, so everybody can get to it. I'll get Lisa to send it over to me though, because sometimes I get frazzled. I'm great.
That's all right. I'll send you everything, all the things.
Cool. So I said I may have disagreed with you on something, but I don't think I did. No. I mean, I got differing opinions on certain things. We don't need to go there today. It's fine, With regards to, I want to step away a little bit from the grief side of things. Just focus on the mental health, and just sort of in a general overview of mental health would be, I always advocate. So for myself, if you're suffering, I always suggest you talk to a friend. And if you feel like that friend isn't enough, you should seek professional help. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, I personally don't do well with authority. So for me, I don't think professional help would be a good thing, because I would look at them as an authoritative figure, and that would probably make me worse. But again, everybody's different. So if you are suffering, what I would say do is talk to a friend, if not professional. But there are some things you can do for yourself. Exercising, like fresh air, like I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but if you feel like if you just feel like shit and you're sitting inside all day and you're eating junk food and you're drinking shit, like maybe just try change a few things and it might actually improve how you feel, people. Like, I've been going for a few weeks of eating shit and putting on a bit of weight. I went to the gym this morning and I come out and I was like, I'm a new man. So that's also something, you know, work out, get some fresh air, spend time with like-minded people. Also remember, you like literally become like the 5 people you surround yourself with. So be careful who you're surrounding yourself with. Try grounding. I love a bit of grounding. Super into that. And ice baths and sit in a sauna. Like, there's a few things that I would suggest, but what I want to know is, like, Lisa, from yourself, if what would be your like tips or advice to people who may be struggling? And that could be anything from feeling a little bit down to, you know, the major side of it, you know. And yeah, what would you say? What would you say to people who are struggling?
Verbatim, I would say every single thing that you just said. It was like listening to myself answer the same question. So I think there's so much alignment in where your head is and where my head is around that. But I mean, I would just say, if you don't know what your thing is, if you don't have a go-to thing, and a lot of people do, a lot of people have daily practices. I have a lot of what are now non-negotiable daily practices. Like, I get up. Yeah.
I've heard that term a lot.
And this goes back to boundaries for me. Like, there are certain things, like, I need to move my body every day. I've been a runner for many, 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 many years. I had to take a little bit of time off from running, but I have a very strong yoga practice. I have a very strong meditation practice. I get in the gym and I lift at least 4 to 5 days a week. I have to move my body, whether I'm on a trail or I'm on a paddleboard or I'm on a longboard or I'm skiing. I have to move my body. Those are non-negotiables. I have to be outdoors. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's 100 degrees. I need to be outdoors. I need to be away from a screen. I need to write in a journal. I mean, it's right here. It's always right with me wherever I am. I need to do those things. And I know that from decades of trying different things, because we all have to start somewhere. And we all sometimes don't know where our starting point is. So you listed off some of my most favorite things that I just told you were some of the things that I do every single day of my life. I'm the person who will, case in point, we had to get up. We had a family wedding this past weekend. We had a very early flight. I had to wake up. I chose to wake up an hour early. I got up at 3:30 in the morning to make sure that I had the time to meditate and to journal and to do some sort of fitness before we got ourselves to the airport. And that's because I know what my day will be like if I don't do that thing for myself or those things for myself. And if you don't know what those things are, you're hearing things that Josh is saying, you hear things that I'm saying, you know things that other people around you are doing. If you don't have a clue, pick one of those things. If you don't have some kind of a hobby or a practice, just Google what there are for practices in the world and just do a little 100%. Research, see what other people around you are doing. How do you think I got into yoga? It was because one of my closest friends was like, do you want to do a yoga class? 30 years ago? Sure, I'll try yoga. Oh my God.
I need to try yoga.
Everything is not for everybody, but it is life. It has been life-changing for me. I've probably had now close to a 30-year yoga practice. I meditate every day. Some days, if I'm lucky, it's that, 8 to 10 minute yoga practice meditation practice followed by yoga. Sometimes it's only a minute. Sometimes I only can set an intention and have the time to squeeze in a minute. And it doesn't mean I'm sacrificing. It just means I'm modifying just to get the thing that I need. So it's we all need those things that fuel us, and we don't always know what they are. And that's part of the fun. 100%. It's figuring it out. And you know that if you're not vibing with one thing, you just drop it and go to another thing or give it a little time.
And that way you've learned something about yourself as well. Like, case in point, I can't meditate for shit because I have too much going on in here, where to the point is if I'm quiet, I'm not quiet up here, I have to be doing something. But for me, it's like anything that releases those little endorphins is what gets me going. When I say I bought Pokemon cards, opening a pack of Pokemon cards makes me so fucking happy. It's a joke. And also, just make your bed. When you get up, make your bed, because you've done something of the day and you've succeeded.
Can I give you a personal fact that I've never disclosed? Not that it's any big secret, but my exclusive on the Let's Get Chatting podcast. So every day that my husband and I have been together, and he's traveled over the years on business quite a bit. I've begun traveling now, so we're not always in the same place. Every day of my married life, in what has now just become the 32nd year of marriage, Dave and I make the bed together. It is the first thing that we do every single morning. We make the bed, clean up the bedroom, and have it look proper before we walk downstairs every morning of our married life. And it's the best feeling. And he was never that guy who did that. And now when I'm not here, he will always make the bed every morning.
Yeah. Listen, and all of the things that I think that we've mentioned, if you can do it with your partner, is probably going to feel better. Like I would say, like me and my fiance, we're very, like, she's a photographer. So through the day, like, I'm at work, she is looking after little man, so she can't get a lot of work done. So in the evenings, she does her work. I'll podcast, game, do my bits, and then she'll go to bed super late because she'll be up editing until like 1 a.m. But I'm up super early to go to the gym. So it's like we're on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but we have there's a sweet 2 hours, and it's between like 9 and 11, and those 2 hours is just our time. And again, you've got to have that time as well. Like we should all have our own thing to do. I think, especially in a relationship, like we've gone through stages where I'm like, right, we just need to not text through the day, because then we've got like us time to talk about things, because we run out to talk about things. And we haven't even touched on social media tonight. Oh my Lord, that is so negative. Like, it's great because I can share this and we can all share our positive things, but guys, like, please don't judge your life on social media.
It's curated, so everybody. It's curated. It's like, not real.
It's bullshit, right? Because if you've listened to my last episode, anybody, you'll listen to Lauren, and it was a great conversation. It was about it actually released, the date of recording is the 17th today, which is today. It released today, and they run a camping business for single parents only. And it's great because Lauren, please go back and listen, guys, because she expressed how it feels to go on holiday as a single parent, being sat there, and the way you feel on your own on holiday as a parent, knowing that at night you're just sat on a balcony because your child's asleep. You can't do anything. You're sat there, you're on your own, you're a bit lonely. But you will see every single parent post on Instagram that it was the best time of their life. So yes, a lot of it's fake, people. Yeah,
I loved every second of this conversation.
Awesome. But to finish on a positive note, guys, I've got merch, bitches. So get at me on Instagram and places. Check out Lucy. I'm going to post that on my Instagram story as well. She's great. And I'm not finishing this episode without saying Lisa is my mum's name as well.
Oh, I love that. That just made me feel so close to you. I love that.
But yeah, anything to close out?
Thank you for this conversation. It just lit me up in all the right ways, and it hit on all the things that I would ever want to put out into the world. Just why we need to be looking out for ourselves, because if we don't, we're no good to the people we want to care about, and we need to be looking out for the people that we care about. And if we don't know how to do that, we can seek out and find ways to do that, ways to have conversations, ways to check in. And the bottom line is that, none of us is living in a perfect world, and that's okay. But we can absolutely function in that world to the best of our ability if we just allow ourselves to be all things all the time.
Amazing. Well, everybody, I want to thank you all for listening. But before I do that, I do want to say, because I feel like I've bashed men's mental health today, but I didn't. That's not the intention, guys. I am fully appreciative of the Men's Mental Health Month, and I do believe like men's mental health is a massive thing. I just think that we all need to just focus on mental health in general. That's all I'm saying. Yes, men are a lot harder to get through to. Don't try to be the alpha. Open up, people. Thanks for listening. I love you all. Remember to check out Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. You know where we are. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Like, share, comment, do the bits, do the bobs. Because the more you do that, the more this could help somebody. And that's what it's all about. The reason this is called Let's Get Chatting is because we all need to be chatting to each other. We need to be talking to each other. Love each other. Love you all. Thanks for listening. Peace.